got an agenda. What I'll say for visitors is each company's going to come in about 45 minutes. Please do not interrupt the 45 minutes at all. If there's something for us, there'll be a short break in between and you can catch us then, but it's important that they have the exact same time. So we'll go ahead in order. You guys have your questions, definitely. If you've got follow-on, ask it. I'll be your timekeeper. A couple of you guys have done this with me before, so you know I'm pretty good at timekeeping. And they know this is not a big situation. So, any questions?
That's me, I'm sorry.
Okay, you just reminded me to turn mine on.
No. Given that we have a few minutes before their formal time, do you want me, for the benefit of Westwood Media Center and anyone who's watching this afterwards, just to give a quick recap of the process and what we're doing here?
If you'd like to, that'd be great.
Sure.
And the other thing is, if you want to do the introduction when the firm comes in, I think that's appropriate for me.
Introduction.
Just hello, this is who we have.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's,
So for anyone who's watching this after the fact that's filmed, I'm Connor Mead, I'm the town administrator here in Westwood. We are here today with the OPM review committee under a procurement process. For folks who don't work in municipal government, we have to follow strict state law on the standards that we use for selecting firms for things like project management, design, architectural standards, and of course construction. When communities are seeking to hire project managers and owner's project manager, a lot of acronyms get thrown around. OPM is the shorthand for owner's project manager. The owner in this case is the public, it's the town through the town leadership, and the project manager is a firm that you bring in that under ideal circumstances becomes an extension of the town and is basically your project rep to work between the project owner, which is the town of Westwood, and all of the professional firms that get brought in to design, permit, and build public buildings. It's mandated under state law, Michelle, I believe, for any project over 1.5 million, is that correct?
Yep.
And construction value that you have an OPM, and it is certainly outside of a mandate, a very good practice to have. These are firms that typically are construction and design professionals. They often have communication professionals on staff. Their responsibility is not to the designer, it is not to the construction teams, it is to the project owner, which is the town and the public, and to really try to be the intermediary between what does the owner need out of a project, which is, you know, a cost-effective and appropriate building to meet the public and department needs, versus what is the actual land that you're working with give you as far as design options, what is the designer recommending, what are areas where you can shift things around, try to save money responsibly, and to be there with you from the concept level, which is where we're currently at. FS1 went all the way through design development over the course of many years, went to a vote for construction twice last year, both failed. And in response to that, the select board created a citizen-led steering committee, a member of which is here with us and is on this OPM selection team, to basically start at ground again and look at different options for how do we get to a new vision of an FS1 project that the community can get behind. And so the FS1 steering committee has had dozens of meetings. They've met publicly for many months, and they recommended late in winter to the select board and the town that we proceed with assessing 3 sites: the existing site, the Lambehind Starbucks, and the former Deerfield School. And to do that, you need to go through feasibility and schematic design. And to do a feasibility and schematic program, you need to build a team, and the first step of that is pulling an OPM on board, and that's what we are here to do today. So we put out a competitive request for proposals, of technical proposals. We received a really, really great response. I think we had 10 firms respond, and we used competitive criteria to evaluate those firms and shortlisted 3 to come in for interviews today. And so we're going to hear from 3 firms today. We're going to hear from Vertex, PMA, and CMS, and use that information coupled with their technical proposals to come to a decision on who we believe is going to be the best fit for Westwood and for this new approach to the FS1 project.
Okay, great summary, appreciate that.
Great.
It is 9:10, I'm gonna go ahead and let her text in so they can get set up, and then we'll plan on listening at 9:15.
Great. Really funny if the mic was off that whole time.
And again. Are you guys in the temporary structure?
Not yet. Garage doors should be going in. That's gonna be the last remaining piece. The structure's fully up. They're buttoning it up today, I would say,
Mhm.
loose ends, but,
Right.
two.
Good to see you too.
Brian Jarvis. Brian Connor.
Hi,
Nice to
Jen.
meet you.
Jody Petroselli.
Good to see you again, Jen.
Right. Colin McCarthy.
Colin?
Hi, Jody Petroselli, how are you?
Hey, Chin. Good to see you. Good to see you.
It went dark, so I wanted you to, you're my emotional support animal here.
Are you gonna help me out with this?
Yeah.
I have
Oh,
this.
no,
and
I
these.
just know.
Yeah, thumb drive, right? In my computer.
Definitely not.
Yours isn't, how did
Okay, perfect.
Let's see.
So what do I do now?
Give me 1 second.
Free speaking?
Yeah.
And then you can move the keyboard and mouse if you wanna, so you can see better.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, is that it right there? Is that it?
Great. So, Brian, Chin, thank you for joining us. Before you jump into your presentation, just for your benefit, we'll quickly introduce ourselves.
Yep.
We're the screening committee for Owner's Project Manager Services for the new approach to FS1. I'm Connor Reed, I'm the town administrator. I'll go down to my right and then to my left.
Oh, well, Molly
Yes.
Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
sorry, Deputy Town Administrator.
Nora Locknane, Director of Community and Economic Development.
Michelle Muller, Procurement.
Jody Petroselli, I'm on the FS1 Steering Committee.
Colin McCarthy, Assistant Fire Chief.
Right, and I believe Michelle already walked through the expectations on time here. You have
Yep,
a
yeah, well,
great-
we
awesome.
should be good to go,
I'll let you
so.
get into it.
Great, excellent. So thank you for having us. We're excited to be here to talk through such a critical and needed project. It's good to see some of you again. We already introduced ourselves, but go through it quickly with our team here. Brian Jarvis, Managing Director, but also Project Director for this project. Been with Vertex and our previous company for over 15 years, doing nothing but OPM. Involved with prior projects here in Westwood, so looking forward to an opportunity to get this project over the finish line. Kind of day-to-day contact for this project and this team. Turn over to Chin.
Chin Lin, and I have been with Vertex for 7 years. Prior to that, I was an architect. So I'm a registered architect and been doing project management for the last 7 years. And I also did the Pinewood Elementary School in town.
All right. Also shown and not here today, to speak through it quickly. Brian Force, another director for us, fire station expert. He's actually at a groundbreaking for a fire station this morning, not knowing the interview time was a conflict, but he can definitely he'll be joining our team, kind of providing input. Works with a lot of different communities. Currently, he's working on a fire station in Melrose, but he's worked with a lot of smaller communities where Cost is obviously a huge driver, which I think would be advantageous as this project starts to move forward, looking at options. Also very expert in fire system that go into stations, so things that have to be in the station from a systematic and program perspective. A lot of input there. Bill Nagel, our construction site manager, been with Vertex for over 10 years, would be on site day to day when the project gets to construction. Is currently on our headquarters project down in Pembroke, fire headquarters. Has worked on multiple fire stations in the last 10 years. And Mary Cuppins, who some of you are familiar with, director of our project accountant. Each one of our projects gets a dedicated accountant. Mary's worked with the town successfully on all the projects to date. Is an expert in kind of keeping the budget, keeping us on budget and making sure that we every dollar is accounted for. And then quickly, just some of you may or may not know, as part of a larger firm, our OPM group has some access to in-house resources listed at the bottom. Ones that might be of interest based on some of the options that we have available is our environmental team, who's able to do kind of phase 1 site assessments. We can bring them in as needed to help the town if there are questions. And we only use a handful of sub-consultants. Our cost estimating, either PMC and AM Fogarty, which you probably worked with before. And we also work with a company called Adcom Engineering, who are emergency radio communication experts. So we're using those on a few projects that help with any design questions or transition type options that need to happen on these types of projects. Quickly, just going through, we have about 50 people dedicated to OPM work in Massachusetts. That's all we do. 85% of what we work on is public projects, so very well-versed in the ongoings of public construction, especially public safety. Why us? We love doing these projects. I'm a son of a firefighter. I love public safety projects. I've done probably over a dozen in the last 15 years. Jen and I have worked together, a lot of comparable experience. We also know some of the ins and outs of what's been happening in Westwood over the years, being involved with earlier projects. So we understand kind of the plans, the efforts, and some of the challenges that you faced and how we're able to potentially address those moving forward. And also just really focused on customer service. I made a role change about a year ago to come back into work specifically on projects, so that can be dedicated to projects versus kind of overseeing multiple projects. So we really think that sets us apart from some other firms, is that we're able to dig in and really be shoulder to shoulder with you as you move forward through this process. I won't bore you with some of this. This was in our response, but public safety, we actually have more than what's on this list, but this is what could fit. But these are the public safety experience that we've had in the last 10, 15 years. Between Brian, Chin, myself, we've been on every one of these projects for the most part in some form of capacity. And I'll turn it over to Chin.
Yeah, and for this particular project, that I think that what we need to make sure is that the public understands the process and the need. And obviously the why is very clear. However, that is not necessarily the case that for the public, we need to make sure that we go out there and explain why, even though it's obvious to everybody in the room, but that's, we need to make sure that the voter understand what the need is. And then we need to make it clear to the voter that from the town perspective, who or what committee will be driving the design phase. And I understand that once it goes into the construction phase, the permanent building committee will be taking over. But from now to the bidding, who is making which body will be making decision and how the decision will be made, those are important issues that we need to make it clear to the voters. And what is this project? What are the goals for the project? Building for the next 50 years, and is it going to be 2 or 3 stations? And that in there, that one of the most important part perhaps is what would you use as a criteria to judge what is the right thing to be this building? One thing that I come up with last night was that it should be maybe it's the most cost-effective building to build and operate to meet the fire department's need. If you state the goals clearly in the beginning and just taking the most effective building to build and operate to meet the fire department's need, that would set the goal very clearly, and it may not be the price tag may not be what at the end the price tag may not be what the voter think is appropriate, but the thing is that you set it out to say that we are doing the best option moving forward, and that would allow you to be able to tell the voter that this is the most cost-effective for the long term, not necessarily the least costly project as a capital cost. And then that would make it easier for the project. And you also have a guide to make each decision. And then in addition to that, there's the town's energy goals and how should that incorporate into it, so that these are clearly stated in the beginning. That will make life a lot easier. And then then you can use the criteria to get to the where, and then how, and then the cost will come as an end result from there.
Yeah, we have a bunch of slides behind this. We can talk about fire station design and construction as much as you want to, but we really think that the opportunity for this project is understanding what the feedback you've already received based on the prior project, because that's really what's going to drive the success. I mean, at the end of the day, you can come up with a great project with here's everything we want and everything we need, but here's what they're going to give you, and how do you bridge that gap, and how do you communicate that gap so that you're getting that right balance between the aesthetics, the operations, the cost, the location, and that's what we really wanted to focus on today. But again, if we have questions on the how and the how do you do these projects, we can do that as well. The other thing Chin touched upon, and we're going to get into a little bit more, is just how does the project fit into the long-term plans for the town? Because there's other projects coming behind this, and I think there's questions from taxpayers of like, well, here you're now, but you're going to be back later, so on and so forth. That creates uncertainty, creates confusion, and that creates conservatism. We're just going to hold and not do anything right now until we know everything. So I think that's really a big point of what this effort needs to be. Options analysis, a lot of experience. We do this on every one of our jobs. I know the steering committee's done a great job right now looking at some additional sites, but this is something we've been doing for the last 20 years on any type of project. It's really creating that vehicle that the public can see clearly what are the criteria, how are those criteria prioritized, and when you start looking at not only sites, but concepts and how they fit, how do those ebb and flow based on, some might be better on certain options and some might be worse. And it's really finding that right balance. And as I mentioned, like the steering committee is doing a great job with some of the weighted criteria at those sites that you're looking at. But these are things that you then need to build this out as far as talking about the program and really defining that program and understanding the square footage that you need, because the site might be viable from a lot of different perspectives, but the floor plate of the building is going to be driven on what your program is. Size of apparatus, transition from hot to warm to cold. That first floor becomes a fixed thing that needs to be able to work on your site for not only parking, circulation, and operations. So even though the site looks good on some criteria, you then need to look at what does it really work for the fire station that we can build, and then what are some of the variable costs that could be associated with that site? Because I know some of the sites you're looking at have issues around access to High Street and things like that. So what are some of those peripheral things that just aren't in a building project that might not get captured in some of the previous efforts? And also, we can help lead this process. We, like I said, do this on every project. We really get into the weeds with this, really understanding the criteria, making sure that the site options analysis is done thoroughly, and then the options analysis that sits on top of that, the concepts, once you figure out sites, are really vetted. Underneath that is the one that was done for the previous projects, started with 26-something options that we helped shepherd through, so we can also bridge that gap and answer some of the questions, or maybe even answer some of the misconceptions that might have been out there about what was done in the past. Feel pretty confident about talking through that effort. And then looking at those options, some of those sites, now that you have this opportunity, create some really interesting variables that you have to take into consideration. Things like, does it reduce the amount of phasing related to the project, which helps bring costs down? Right? Does it enhance your operations and circulations? Are you able to get drive-through bays, something like that you may have never had before? Does it allow for more cost-effective building? It's not maybe front-facing, so you can come up with some more cost-effective building structures, maybe spread it out because the site's a little bit bigger, metal storage buildings, things like that for stuff that isn't front-line, that might bring the overall cost of the project down. Do you have things like temporary ops, which you've already been talking about? Does it require off-site improvements? We have to change intersections, provided lighted signalization to get out onto a spot that we haven't been in before. Do you need to replicate a field somewhere? That's going to be a huge factor with the citizens of, we build here, but we lose the field. Where do we put that? That cost should be in the project or not in the project. That's a huge issue with schools because you usually build on the fields that are available next to the school. You have internal infrastructure like iNet, your radio relocation, depending on where you go, that could change. But the goal is that some of these opportunities might give you a better opportunity to balance that program operation and aesthetics like we talked about. Like what is the most priority, what is the most cost benefit at the end of the day to the town, and what has the biggest priority in some of those categories. And obviously cost is going to be a driver in all of them. So how do you control cost? Designer scope and fees. Designer, at the end of the day, is the largest expense. Just call it 10% of the project, if you will. So opportunity here to potentially reduce the cost of the designer on this effort going forward because they've already been on board. Maybe you go in a different direction, but you really need to look in how do we get the most out of that? How do we, like a service-based cost versus just a straight percentage? And as Chin talked about, really setting and defining the expectations for the project. What's the project charter? What are the goals that we're trying to hit? I mean, program, cost and aesthetics are great metrics, but at the end of the day, if that isn't supported by the taxpayer group, you need to change what those are. And you need to understand, okay, well, this is what we really want, and this is what we really need. How do we get there? One way to think about it is, what's a tax impact that's passable? And how do you work backwards to really define your program and the cost of the building? And that's that give and take of what's in and what's out. Does a certain number at a town meeting vote more appealing than, obviously the lower number it is, but can that work with the program you have? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Efficient use of square footage. Make sure it's the most cost-effective, operation-appropriate solution. Nothing more, nothing less. A lot of local towns use that. Norwood uses it on every project. Nothing more, nothing less. This is exactly what we need. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a great statement. It resonates, but we need to kind of come up with that marketing campaign. And we can use a lot of our experience on recent projects. Projects failing like schools and fire stations is a relatively new occurrence in the last couple of years, given the climate that we are in economically, politically. Schools usually are no-brainers. There's more schools failed in the last 2 years because of the cost. Fire stations are usually right behind schools in the ability to pass. We're starting to see that. We're seeing a lot of projects do a lot of interesting things to bring the cost of those projects down, so we can help with that. And then create a strategy all the way through, making sure you're on budget the whole way, and then ready for bid day if you get to that point with how do you make sure that the thing actually comes in where you said it was going to be, so you can come back to the voters and say, we did what you asked us to do, and here it is. Excuse my poor graphics here, but the next aspect related to cost is how does that actually affect the taxpayer, and how do you communicate that during the project? In the past, you could say, well, this project fits in line with fire stations all over Commonwealth, and we're below average for the cost of the fire station. Well, that's great, but if that means X to your taxpayer, they don't care. They want to know, is this the most cost-effective building that we could build, like Chin said? Can you get that tax impact? I think you were at mid-3s before. Can we get a 2 in front of that? That's a much more appealing number. What does that take? Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, but that's a different message. Coming back with $10 lower than what you did before is probably not going to do it. So how do we be aggressive and really think through some of this? But you also have to show the impacts of all the potential options, which includes doing nothing. Because at the end of the day, taxpayers usually say, oh, they're asking me for X $100 a month versus 0. Well, no, we're actually asking you for the difference between X $100 a month and the immediate repairs to the slab, or in renovation cost, or an ad reno cost. And now you're talking tens of dollars, not hundreds of dollars to the taxpayer. It's a different message.
If you start to look at over time,
Yep.
that number that do nothing or do the renovation option
Goes
would
up.
cost you more as an end result. So I think what this is doing is that allow you to present to the voters that you're being physically responsible, and then you're thinking in the long term.
And this type of example on the graphics, again, it's showing that debt service over time and currently what's in your budget and how does this project fit into it with potential projects that are coming behind it. Obviously, you're trying to keep it level as much as you can, but there's spikes in these projects where, yes, it's this much for the first several months, but then it's declining, and then other things are rolling off at different periods when another project comes on, shows the town's plan of, hey, we actually have everything thought out. Here's our 5-10-year plan out to the taxpayer that they understand this project fits and how other project fits. You have school projects coming behind this. If you haven't started the project, you're 8 years away from that school project actually coming on the books from an MSBA's perspective from a construction cost. So how does that, ebb and flow with what you have for other capital projects? And you start to overlay that to say, this is how this project fits into our plan. Our taxes are going to hopefully somewhere remain close to steady. That's always a very powerful message, but you have to be able to show that, and that resonates a lot more than just it's X $100 a month to the taxpayer. And we can help with that. As far as understanding school projects, we do more school projects than probably any other OPM, so we understand the MSBA process, timelines, what that really means, reimbursement rates, and we can do all that modeling for you as well. And finally, throughout the entire process, the most important thing is community engagement. People have to understand where we are, where we're going, answer the questions, felt like they're heard. I'll turn it over to Chin to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and then this is the community engagement has to be a holistic process. If you started out clearly explaining why and what and who and how is the process being made, that will make it a lot easier to go out there to tell the story to the public. And then that you will take every opportunity you can, whether it's you'll be looking at public forums, mailer, and any other community event that we can create, and maybe that we will do more school visit with the fire department, and just to show the need, and then just get the public to understand the issues, and then that all these public meetings, if it is a meeting or forum, should be recorded so that you can point to a reservoir of meetings that say it is not that the town definitely had done the job to do the outreach, that nobody can come back to you and says, well, you've been making decision in the dark. Next.
Yeah, I just want to add quickly, like, again, I think everyone understands this is a town-wide project, and I think soliciting the feedback, making feel like folks have been heard, and they can actually see how some of that input has helped shape some of those options, they get on board. And the goal really is, in addition to the traditional stuff like public meetings and community forums, it's go where the people are. Don't expect them to engage in the vehicles you've already set up. Steering committee website is great, the meetings are great, the frequently asked questions, all good stuff that from a foundation, but get that truck down to the soccer field on Saturday morning and talk to the people. Kids, oh, I love the fire trucks, and then shameless plug is we need, outside the box thinking to garner, make that personal for people. Make it personal, understanding, meeting the firefighters, understanding that it's a vote for, Jimmy or Billy versus just a number. And get to other things like coffee shops, senior centers, school events. Again, it's a town-wide project, and if it's all tied together with the long-term picture of what all of those other constituents are concerned about, they understand how it all fits together and are willing to move through the process.
And in fact, that in the last major construction project, the Pine Hill project, that Superintendent Emily Park and Maya, they went everywhere and anywhere that people would listen to them. And then so in some way that we need to identify the advocate for this project, and then we will have to do the similar kind of things in order to get out there. We took the liberty of thinking out loud of, well, what that might look like from here to the fall town meeting. And then so following OPM selection, that you don't need to have the OPM or the architect on board, that you can already go out there to say, how did we get here? And what are we going to do? And how are we going to get from here to that fire station getting built? You can already start that process. And then once you have the funding, and then with the team on board, then you can then go out there and then introduce the team, and then you can start talking about the site issue, site selection. Not a decision made, but simply saying, this is what the steering committee come back, and then this is how we're going to move forward. And then if you define the goals for the project, right, then you can say, we will be reviewing these sites against the criteria or against the goals that we have set up, and then looking at it. So you're going out there to the public without any decisions made, so that way to bring them along. And then once you go through that process, and then you should, it would be good to also do one just simply on the criteria and explaining why each one of the criteria are important for the project. And then the summer is going to be a little bit difficult, so, and that would be about the time that the architect need to do the homework and then get the cost estimate. Once you have the cost estimate back, then you present the options and the costs. And then before you make a decision on which one you want to move forward, or how you want to move forward, before you go to the town meeting. And then some of these days you probably would be doing it backwardly to make sure that you fit the town meeting, whatever filing date that you have to have. And then after that, it will be just the roadshow to get to the town meeting, to get to the vote.
And we'll wrap up here in the next slide. The key about the cost estimate comes into play with the options analysis, is that's where you're talking about all the peripheral costs that could potentially come with a particular site that need to get priced out, so you understand where those costs are coming from, not just in the building itself, but the roadways or the off-site improvements or the field replication or whatever it is, maybe least expensive building option, but at the end of the day, it's the most expensive project option for different reasons, and you really need to vet that. In
addition to that, in that cost estimating process, we also have to include what does it look like over the next 10 years, so that, or whatever number of years, so that you look at the real cost to the town, not just today.
So why us? Really want to be part of this project. Kind of that finish the job mentality, if you will. We understand the need is critical at this point. You got, the tent on the apron. It can't wait any longer. And really want to make sure that that happens for the town of Westwood. We love doing these projects. We think we're the right size firm. We have the capacity to do the project management, but also bring in some resources if and when needed to help, provide additional data points if needed. We're local. I'm right down the street. I could be at all these events, at a moment's notice if needed, on Saturdays, whatever the plan is. I really want to make sure that at the end of the day, the town gets what it needs, the best outcome for our clients. I think that's been proven by our track record over the year, working with multiple towns on public safety school projects back to back to back, just really delivering value and being valuable to them is really what our goal is. So with that, I'll close. Happy to answer questions. Like I said, we have a bunch of slides. If you have something specific related to design or construction, we can get into any of that, but welcome whatever questions you might have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brian. So we have some preset questions for every firm for the sake of fairness, but we will certainly have the option for more detailed follow-ups or particulars about your presentation. So out of the gate, can you tell us what experience does Vertex have, if any, serving as OPM on a project that had previously failed? And if you've done this, were you able to get it approved after either you were brought in as a new firm from the outside, or if you were brought back in Westwood, were you able to get a project over the finish line, and how?
Yep. Yeah, so actually we have a current case. So we just took over, we just selected as the OPM in Medfield.
Okay.
Medfield Dale Elementary School failed last year. We were not part of that project, but we were selected as an OPM to lead that project, kind of based on our understanding of the current marketplace and some of the touch points and pain points for school projects. And the difference there is, again, I think the environment has changed, so a lot of projects have gone in with, well, this is a school project, of course we need to do a school project, and the cost is, well, we're within line of the MSB, and you just kind of go in with like, well, why wouldn't they support these things? And I think you really need to start to drill down into, well, how do we do it a little bit differently to say this is the most cost-effective and the most logical project for the town? So bringing those aspects of school projects to Medfield is what we're doing, and it's really kind of talking about what we talked about here, is how do you reach and make sure that the message is resonating with the taxpayer and the constituents, that they've been heard. Our Stoughton project failed 2 years ago, Stoughton Elementary School, South Elementary School. We remained on as OPM. We didn't close the project, if you will. They went back and they looked at program, they looked at the building, they dropped the size of the building, they cut costs, they cost taxpayer impact, and it passed. It's currently starting construction.
Good.
We've had a couple other projects of Millis Middle School, High School, very small community. They got sticker shock the first time they, 5,000 people trying to do a massive high school project. Sticker shock, they wanted to table it, they wanted to drop out of the MSBA pipeline. We basically paused, said we really need to look at all the different options again and play out that 5 to 10 year plan in more detail and understand what doing nothing or a smaller project might mean to you, and are you really going to get out of it what you need to get out of it, or is it you're going to do a smaller project now, which means you need to do another project 10 years from now, which is, doesn't save you money in the long run.
Right.
They revisited all that, went back into the MSBA pipeline, stayed in the MSBA pipeline, represented it, and it passed. So it didn't fail. They paused it, but they knew it was going to fail the first time. And like I said, there's only been a handful of projects in the previous to this last couple of years that had failed.
Right.
Leading up to that, because usually it was a well-run project on budget, based on what the goals of the project. And obviously the tax impacts are different. I mean, these two projects were done at $400 a square foot, so.
Yeah, great.
Different
I was going
time,
to
so.
ask you that as a follow-up for the benefit of folks either on the committee or residents who watch the footage of this after the fact. When you talk about this is a very different environment and schools were kind of no-brainers, I think it's important to highlight that the reason for that is that with schools, outside of very rare occasions, there's significant state grant money on the table.
Correct.
Right, which makes that value proposition better for taxpayers. But something that's really important and makes the environment we're operating in so difficult is that the per square foot construction cost has completely exploded.
That's right.
You referenced mid $400 per square foot.
Yeah, these two buildings were 4 to 5. I mean, public safety these days, you're 8 to 1,000. I mean, I think you guys were in the,
Correct.
last project was in the 830-ish, 840-ish range, which is kind of in the middle of what you see. So again,
And the MSBA tracks this, and this is
Yep.
public, right? Which I
Yep.
always found very useful in my experience with showing folks. These are not numbers we're pulling out of the sky. The state
no, right.
tracks very closely the
Yep.
estimated versus final construction costs, and in the span of 6 years, it's gone from mid fours to now.
And they've actually upped their reimbursement
Correct.
multiple times in the last 5 years, which they hadn't done that in the longest time, because everyone
Right.
always thought that, and again, it's not a straight, as you might know, it's not a straight reimbursement. There's a only eligible cost, so
formula,
they
right.
tell you 50, but at the end of the day, you only get 30. So how do you maximize that gap between 30 and 50?
Right, but
So-
that at the end of the day, every year that goes by, the square footage cost is going up at a rate that hasn't been
Yeah, for
seen
the
in
most
20
part-
years, right?
For the most part, there's that baseline escalation. Obviously, there's things like COVID and post-COVID that create
Right.
these abnormal spikes. Some things recover, some things don't. But I think from a planning perspective, from the town's perspective, is the original mission was, hey, we have all these buildings, we're gonna stagger them so we can accomplish a couple different things.
Right.
Unfortunately, when you come back to this building's done fairly cost effectively, but it's double the price. Nothing significantly changed from what you did before. It just costs twice as much to do it.
Right.
It wasn't I don't think it was short-sightedness. It just becomes the reality of the environment. So I think perhaps the misconception is, well, we were trying to finish the vision that the town originally had, and we had a building that met that vision, right, aesthetic-wise, location-wise, everything, but that building's twice as expensive as it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So that's what we're talking about, I think, in our cover letter, was you can't come in with a preconceived notion of like, well, this is it, because this is it isn't gonna work. Like, you need to figure out how do we creatively get as much of that as possible at a number that passes, because at the end of the day, I'd love to have this, but they're only gonna give you this, and if this doesn't happen, I'd rather have this than nothing. So you have to figure out how do we get there and have those tough conversations, so.
Can I ask a follow-up on Medway? I know, so you were brought in for an elementary school that failed.
Correct.
And I know that they're building a massive public safety town hall complex, or it's in the pipeline
Oh,
to
in
do
Med,
so.
I said
In
Medfield.
Okay, good,
Yeah,
all right,
Medfield.
never
Yeah,
mind.
Medway.
I was like,
So
how
Medway
are they
has-
doing that?
So
Never mind.
Medway- No, but I know Medway, so Michael out there, they have a very big challenge on their hands.
Yeah.
With that complex, because that's the same thing. And you're gonna talk a public safety town hall project that's gonna rival an elementary school in cost at
Yeah.
$100 million.
Okay,
Plus all the infrastructure upgrades that they make. They've done a lot of it preemptively on 109, but that's gonna be great. I think Dorn is designing that as well. It's gonna look very economical and fit into Medway, but that's gonna be a $100 million project to the
Easily.
taxpayers of Medway, which, I mean, we're on a project right now that just passed town meeting in Princeton. So think about that, 5,000 people total, able to get a project through there at just about the same cost per square foot as where you think you wanna be here, right? And totally different size, but like, it's just the economics of the town and how do you relate to that? So, I hope that answers your questions. Like, it has been more prevalent in the last few years. We've always had a good track record of projects passing, but we have started to see some of those, and it's all, at the end of the day, it's all related to cost and how you frame the tax impact. They really don't care about anything else other than that, and if, you're never gonna reach everybody, I mean, I shouldn't say that, you're never gonna convert everybody, but you can reach everybody, and if you're able to isolate the pockets of folks are never gonna vote for a tax, even if it's $1, they're not gonna vote for a tax increase. How do you isolate those groups and get the people that say, well, they've done all their homework, this is reasonable, I understand how it fits into everything, and maybe I didn't support it before, but now I am, and that's the delta that you need. So how do you reach kind of that gray area, if you will?
Sure.
And we've also taken over in the last several years, we've taken over projects that hadn't failed, but we've taken over for other OPMs, gonna come right in and figure out how to, right the ship to get ready to go.
Sure, thank you.
I'm going to read my assigned question, but we have just talked about most of it. What role do you view the OPM as having when it comes to meeting a project owner and voter desire for the most cost-effective project possible, balanced against programmatic and design needs for a modern facility? Which is what I think you just said about, if you're only going to get this, this is better than nothing.
Yeah, and I think you have to, I mean, that's a very general statement, but yes, I would agree with that. But if this doesn't meet your program, you really need to make those hard decisions. And I think from our perspective is, unfortunately, if we come on after the designer sometimes, there's already a picture out there, there's already a budget, like, that's it, that makes sense, here's the goal. And then you come in and like, well, we're managing to that goal, we hit the goal, but you really need to start to look at and say, is this really gonna be successful at the end of the day? It's almost that bullet point of how do we like reverse engineer the project? So I think our goal is to make sure that the owner understands hey, this is what's changed, this is what's driving cost. Have you thought about these peripheral costs for some of these other sites? Because, yeah, you could probably build a less expensive square foot building, but you have $4 million in peripheral costs that you don't have on another site. Is that important to you? Maybe that priority is higher than some of the other ones. Chin?
Yeah, and then it's, and then goes back to what Brian is implying, is it's the whole picture. What's the cost for what is the net cost to the town? And what's the most efficient way to move forward in terms of the total cost? Because, yeah, great, we can build on that Deerfield in terms of on the field, and then if you figure out a way to get out to High Street, but then you have to figure out where you're going to. Are we willing to lose the field or we place it there at a cost? And that's all cost. That's not, nothing is.
Program, right?
Yeah.
And I think the other aspect of that is, from an OPM's perspective, is being able to explain the process and help you explain the process and show the process that you've gone through to make these decisions, to get those things out there, versus just saying, hey, we were here, now we're here. But it's difficult sometimes to explain all the, well, this is why we decided to do this. This is the ebb and flow of cost, the value engineering that we did. So people understand that it just wasn't, yep, the architect drew a beautiful building and we priced it and we still hit this price at the end of the project. But in between there, like, now you have this opportunity where you know where you need to be. So how do you implement that process? How do you make sure that we're representing the town in a way that, no, guys, these are the goals you've established. That, we've all established now. Chin's talking about kind of creating that project charter, not only with the town, but with the residents and the governance. So,
and
how do you meet those metrics all the way through? And how do you,
Right.
how do you explain that as you go through it, that we're still on target, still on target, still on target?
And then also in that picture, it need to be, we cannot just simply say, okay, this is the cost of the fire station over the next 10, 15 years. You also have to look at it and say, what does that mean to the rest of the building in terms of how does that impact or not to the other part of the other projects in town that may be coming up, and how are you going to, how would the town manage that? You may or may not need to publicize it, but you need to have that answer if that question comes up.
And I think we can help with a lot of that data with the project experience we have in all municipal projects, schools, public safety, town halls, community centers, whatever, capital repairs.
That-
Understanding the impacts and cost potentials of those and the sequencing of those, like creating that debt service charts of when things might come online, helping with that capital plan, that's definitely things we can speak to.
And at a minimum, that you want to be in a position to show the public, yes, the town is clearly in charge and aware of all the situation, rather than somebody come out and say, well, but you haven't thought about blah, and that you need to be in the position that you're taking the leadership position to move the town forward in the most cost-efficient way for the long term.
Can you tell us about a project that did not move forward or was not successful? What happened? And then looking back, what would you have done differently?
It did not move forward. Public safety, Pepperell Public Safety, again, small town. They were looking to potentially combine public safety into the largest capital project they've ever done. We went through a lot of iterations with how to drive that cost down. At the end of the day, they only had an appropriation for the design phase. They did not want to re-up that. They still have issues with their public safety department as far as the need. The need has not gone away. They've tabled it, and they're trying to, I think, wait for a better time. What we would have done differently, we squeezed that down to about as minimum as possible, because they have a situation where they had needs for stations on both sides of the river. So they had a substation, they had a police station that was in an old school building that was dilapidated and almost falling down. They had a fire headquarters building, which was like basically an old rusted out DPW. I think what we could have done differently is potentially broken those projects apart and created a better timeline of potentially doing those projects in different sequences. But from a cost-effective perspective, combining them made the most sense. I think differently at the end of the day, it just became one of the things that the taxpayers, it's a very rural community, they just didn't support it. I think we probably could have cut out some additional scope that lowered the tax impact. I don't know if that would have made a difference, to be honest with you, because it was down in the $200-some a taxpayer at the time, so it was pretty minimal as far as, there is a base cost for these facilities as far as footprints go, and that's the only one that we've had that has not moved forward.
So based on what you know about this project, what concerns you most? And could you provide an example of how you've adjusted a project based on community feedback?
I'll start. What concerns us, I think this is a great opportunity because you've heard so much feedback. You understand where people's pain points were, or are, you should say. I think what we talked about today is how do you adjust the messaging? How do you adjust the process? How do you adjust the transparency of it and the dialogue to make sure that everyone feels like, again, everyone's engaged. Everyone might not be supportive at the end of the day, no matter what you do, but you can't say that they weren't included in the project. And I think what we always preach is that you really have to have people understand that I might not agree with the outcome, but I believe that the process was thorough, and I believe that the process included everyone it needed to include, and it was very clear and open, and I felt like I was engaged in it, and I voiced my opinion, and they heard that. Because there are going to be things that people bring up. That's a good point. We should think about that. We should be able to maybe reduce something, reduce cost. People feel like they've heard, they're more supportive. And I think not presuming the traditional channels of how these projects happen is the biggest change you would make here, because it's not the same environment. Everybody loves the fire department, everybody loves the police department, but at the end of the day, they really don't like their taxes going up, and they're willing to say no to that. So you need to be able to change the process, the approach, and I think you're on the right track there.
And then being willing, the schedule that we showed is that the draft schedule that we put out there is that what we would like to do in, if we're selected, is to say, go out there before any decisions are made, so that we can say, and it's like, listen to the public, and then fold that into, if we can, fold that into the decision-making process, and then make it clear about what the final goal would be in terms of the long-term planning. If you don't agree, obviously we would. What is the right thing to do? If we establish that, right, then it might still be expensive, but at least that you got people's buy-in in terms of this is the right goal and this is the right way to move forward.
Yeah, the one thing on any project, whether you're restarting it or you're moving forward, is really making sure that you've uncovered all the rocks, because as soon as there's a question that wasn't answered, well, the whole process is wrong, even though it might not make any sense, but there's a perception that something was missed. I think an opportunity here is getting the feedback at the SD level when you actually say, here's the option, and this is going to equate to a building that cost X. Is everybody on board with this? If the answer is no, there's no sense in designing that to get a bid that meets X if X isn't going to happen. So
For the benefit of the public, SD level schematic design, right?
correct, schematic design, correct.
Which is early design.
And correct, similar to the MSBA process, they make you buy in it that you're going to be able to support a project at a
Yes.
price point, correct?
And then I would also throw out there is that if you are willing to pin down the dates for those public meetings right within the next couple of weeks, send out a mailer to everybody. Tell them that this is the process, how we're going to get from point A to point B, how we're going to get from here today to that new fire station to open. And then what are the first part of the decision-making process. And then, so that at least nobody will point back and then say, you never told us that.
Yep.
And you try your best to get out. They won't, not everybody will look at the mailer, but at least you can say that you have made the multiple efforts to reach out to people, and then so that nobody can point to you and say that, well, you didn't let us know.
Yeah, it comes back to, you can reach everyone, you just can't necessarily, have everyone, be on board with the project, but you can't say that they weren't aware of it.
Jody?
Can you talk a little bit about how you would approach working with what Westwood has now, a volunteer committee made up of people that have a vastly very different levels of experience and understanding with capital projects like this? How would you work with that committee and help us understand what we don't understand and make sure we're asking the right questions?
Great question. I mean, I think it's, we like to say it's shoulder to shoulder. You're sitting down and you're part of that. You're part of that committee. We would expect to sit in on and be part of that and contribute to that. Understand, do we need more? Bring the information to the table. How can we help explain something? How can we help explain what's happening in the marketplace? How can we help explain what's happening in other industries? and take the time to really bring people up to speed. We are usually front-facing, so we don't have any problem being the people out in front of the crowds helping to explain these things, deliver presentations as well. We don't expect it to be folks that, I'm the chair of a committee, but I really don't understand the building process. That's a very difficult situation to be in with questions, and then you start to, again, have some of those questions that go unanswered that create the doubt, right? So I've been up in front of plenty of town meetings, you know, representing DPW projects, school projects, answering questions. You know, the good ones are you don't have a whole lot of questions to answer when you're done presenting. So our goal is making sure, thinking through from our experience in other projects, when we present, are we thinking of it from the audience's perspective and making sure that things are answered? And we do the same thing when we present to the committee or work with the committee, is when we present, are we answering questions in advance? Like, almost like a, you know, good attorney, I'm going in knowing what the answer is gonna be before I ask the question. So have we done the homework to have, you know, the 3 slides in the deck that's gonna answer this question that's coming up, whatever setting you're in? But our job would be roll up the sleeves, be right next to you, and, you know, be part of that committee, if you will, to help do the work.
And also, I have volunteered on building committees before, and so one of the things that we do this day in and day out, because pretty much every project we deal with, we're dealing with a volunteer committee, and that so what we do is that we depended upon the organization, and then we will present, we will come in, we are here to work with the committee to get the project done, so that we don't come in with a preconceived notion, but at the same time that we will also come in, and then if we need it, we will come in with we will suggest a plan, such as the proposed communication plan, to go in there, so say, okay, this is one way to do it. If that you're in agreement with us, then we can move forward, and then we will fill you in with all the information that is needed along the way.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that we can do with a committee is make sure that we've established a realistic schedule for what you need to do from a decision perspective, and understand what needs to get done, so when you come to those types of meetings that you have all the information. I think what ends up happening is communities and projects underestimate timelines for things, and they realize the amount of decisions that need to take place. While a designer might be able to meet that from a design perspective, that gives you almost no time to think about it and make big decisions. It's done, it's gotta go out to bid. Make sure you have enough time to make some decisions, think through some changes, understand what this does to the project up and down, putting together work plans where, hey, this is the overall schedule from the nuts and bolts technical stuff, but put it into a document that the committee can say, here's all the committee meetings for the next 6 months, here's the targeted agendas for those meetings. Mr. Designer, you need to be on board and prepared to come to those meetings and early meetings with enough, so when we get to that meeting, they're able to take it all in advance and be able to make a decision, move forward, versus it slips, and now we're up against it and we're rushing at the end. What kills projects is just trying to go too fast and things just start to snowball. And you get to the end and it might be the right product, but a lot of the stuff around it creates those questions, which creates the doubt, and some of the things haven't been fully baked, and that, you know, again, people, well, it's not done yet, I wasn't involved. So planning that out, really working with the committee to keep them on track, to know what they should be asking of a designer and holding the designer accountable, and also making sure that you have a plan for, you know, your community engagement and how you tie into that.
Great, thank you. We only have 4 minutes left.
Yep.
So if there's any lightning round follow-ups, Jody, does anyone
Yeah, whatever.
on the panel have any follow-up questions? I have one for you.
Yeah.
So, as you may know, I'm rather new here. I came in February. I was following the project along from afar just because I am a nerd and I'm interested in building projects around the Commonwealth. You, as a firm, have some unique, I guess, benefits of your experience. You've worked in Westwood, but you also, I think, have a challenge to address. And so what I would ask is, as we're going through this process, if we were to select you, I would assume, although I may be wrong, and I look to the folks on this committee to confirm for me, that one of the questions that we would get right out of the gate from the public, who, from what I've heard, there's criticism of the process last time. If you're at a meeting and I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with you and someone says, so we have a new approach to FS1, and I say, here's the new boss, it's the old boss, right?
Right.
How do you, as an OPM, explain credibly to the public I mean, because this is a very good presentation, and you're a reputable firm, no doubt. You have a great track record. How do you explain what's different? What will you do different this time?
What's different is that we would like to suggest to the committee to go out there before the decisions are made. Go out there now.
Understood.
And go out there now to establish, and then it's like, well, this is what you can come up with those, okay, go out there and say, this is what we're trying to do, and here are the goals. And listen to the public, and then make sure that they're in agreement with you in terms of those goals. That's not us, that's the town, that's the
Sure.
people. And then that's the process, and then so that you're not going, so what you're doing, what we will be doing differently is that we will take that doubt out of the way, sort of like, we make sure that they understand, and also in the process, making sure they understand that the committee and the team has the best interests of the
Sure.
town to move forward.
And I think a way to address that question is in the beginning of the previous effort, I think the goals were maybe slightly different based on, obviously, the environment hadn't happened yet, right? So from
Right.
hey, we know we want to do a building, we have a study that says it should be this size.
Right.
We think it's going to be this budget. Voters seem to support getting started on that process, right? And you go through that whole process, and if you're hitting those metrics along the way, there really isn't a like, hey, this isn't going to be an issue.
Right.
And then you get to the end, and all of a sudden, it's, well, whoa, wait a second.
Right.
So again, where the environment has changed over the years, where all of a sudden it's like, well, I think the presumption of it was just going to happen because it was the next logical step in the plan was probably a miscalculation on, our part of the whole
collective
project part.
part.
I think now you have the
Understood.
opportunity to say that reverse engineering, we've heard you, or we're still soliciting feedback. We're gonna do this differently. We know the pain points. We're not starting fresh. We know what needs to get done. We need to look at it from this perspective. Because I think
Right.
if another firm comes in and says, well, this is how you design and this is how you build, and this is what you're gonna miss the point again. You're just gonna keep going, so.
And then,
that's what-
also involve the financing part,
Right.
and looking
That's
at
a
the
huge
big
piece.
picture.
Yep.
Sure.
Look at the big picture, because you also got, you're submitting an SOI.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right.
And then we want to be honest, and then out there.
And it's
So-
it's understanding the, tax, burden and exhaustion, whatever you want to say, school
Right.
project, the fire station projects, the following school project, being able to explain all of that and be able to align that, I think is a huge advantage to understanding where you've been, what you've gone through, and where you want to go, to kind of connect all those dots, be able to answer those questions truthfully,
Yes.
versus, well, how do I know it's going to be any different with somebody else? It might not be, so.
No, I appreciate that. And then Michelle is standing up.
looking over you.
This is like, I just need like one sentence confirmation, and for my benefit and reminder as the new person for the public, this process of feasibility, last time the OPM was brought in second, is that
Correct.
correct?
After that. Last
So-
time, last time it was, after the feasibility, there was a schedule, there was a budget,
And you were brought in only at that point?
and then we were brought in and to deliver that budget and schedule.
Understood. Thank you both so much. Great presentation,
Thank you.
and we
Thank you.
appreciate your time today.
Excellent.
Thank you.
PMA is here with us, second firm that's been shortlisted. Just really quick for the benefit of the OPM that's here, we'll go through our introductions. My name is Connor Reed. I'm the town administrator here in Westwood. Full disclosure, as we are being recorded for the sake of transparency, we'll acknowledge out of the gate that in my prior community, I have worked with PMA as OPM on projects. So wanted to just say that right out of the gate. And we'll go through the panel to my right first, and then my left with introductions, and then you folks can get underway.
Molly Fitzpatrick, Deputy Town Administrator, Town of Westwood.
Nora Lockname, Director of Community and Economic Development.
Michelle Miller, Procurement.
Jody Petroselli, I'm a member of the FS1 Steering Committee.
Good morning, Colin McCarthy, Assistant Fire Chief.
All right, good morning. Thank you for having us. So we'll run through PMA team introductions here. So myself, I'm Chad Crittenden, Project Executive. I've been with PMA almost 20 years now, so a long time working with this team. Right on.
Walter Hartley, I've been with PMA for a little over 14 years and 18 years experience, bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Merrimack College.
And I'm Seamus O'Connor. I've been with PMA for about 7 years, 8 years experience. I graduated from UMass Amherst with a degree in mechanical engineering.
I'm Matthew Muto. I have 2 years with PMA, but 11 years of experience. Prior to this, I did environmental consulting. So,
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia. Julia Roberto. I have 5 years' experience with PMA. I am the marketing associate in the New England office. I help lead community outreach efforts. I have a background in writing. I got my degree at Emerson College.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we selected this team because we all come from a diverse variety of backgrounds. I'm a CM background, Walter is civil, Seamus is mechanical, Matt is geoenvironmental, so we think that that complement of skill sets is probably the right fit for your project, and that's how we arrived at the team that you have before you today. Real quick about PMA, I'm not going to talk a lot about us because you've already gone through our stuff. We're here for a reason. We are a family-owned business. We're a minority business enterprise in Massachusetts. Our biggest office is in Braintree. We have 110 professionals there. We have multiple offices around the country. We do a lot in-house. We do use sub-consultants when preferred. In this case, third-party estimator would be a sub-consultant. We use PM&C very frequently, and they're a well-known entity in the business. Some of our similar projects are up here. So our resume is built, not bought. We are PMA. We've always been PMA. We don't hire someone and then put their projects up as our own projects on this project sheet. So these are all PMA projects by PMA employees while working for PMA. I'll let Walter, we'll jump right into your specifics and hand to Walter.
All right. So thank you for the opportunity. Following the walkthrough that we had with you guys, we took some time to dive into the existing feasibility study and try to find what we thought could benefit going to a revote, going to another project, moving the project forward. So PMA came up with really 2 takeaways, and the first one being aligning stakeholders with smart solutions. And PMA has had this opportunity on a few different projects. Our Wareham Elementary School project, we actually engaged with the community. There was concerns about where the project was going to be located. They had 2 schools traditionally throughout their history of educating at the elementary level, and there were concerns about combining them and moving them across town. So obviously, different group being students, but similar problems. So we brought that to the community. We did online votes through Facebook to try to gauge the interest and gauge where that community fear was going to land. Down the road in Carver, the project had actually already moved through the vote twice and failed as an addition renovation project. The community was really stuck on saving some of the buildings that they had. They were not historical, but they were historical in the community's minds. PMA was hired because we needed to come in and put out a new message. It's the same problem that still exists. The schools are aging, or in your case, the fire stations are aging and really in a bad situation, and the problems exist. So PMA was able to re-engage with the community. PMA was able to get an architect on board that was able to come up with a solution that was more cost-effective than that addition renovation. And while that may not be the final solution that your project holds, it's something that needs to be investigated because the community right now doesn't have the belief that that was the right decision. So we understand that, and we have a history of being able to bring those projects from a failed vote and from a community distrust level, prior to a vote, to get them to successful votes. And I'll turn it over to Seamus.
Next slide. Yes, so we understand that all the committees in the town have recently decided to look deeper into 3 potential sites for the project. And so we'll just give a quick overview of what we see at a high level for what the challenges and opportunities are for each of the different sites. So we'll start off with the current site, which was the site that was considered for the previous project that Walter had mentioned previously. So to start off with opportunities for the project, the positives for this site, we see that the site has already had a previously feasibility study completed for the project. So there's opportunities to reuse part or all of the design and all the formal studies that were done for that project. So that could lead to schedule savings for any future project held at the same site. Additionally, it's the current location for the fire department, so there'd be no changes to response times. The abutters already know that there's a fire station there. They're used to it. No changes there. And additionally, the site is already owned by the town and set aside for use by the fire department. So there'd be no need to go through any additional town meetings to change what the land is used for. Challenges for the site that we see is that the site is rather small. It's only a little over 1 acre, and it's an occupied site. So if we were to get into construction, it'd be very constrained to get, with swing space and laydown area and logistics, to construct or renovate this area while keeping the fire department fully online without any interruptions to operations. Additionally, the site is known to already have some contaminated materials in the soil and some asbestos in the building, so there'd be some remediation needed there. And the other thing is, it was the site of the project that had failed votes, so we need to alleviate any concerns that the community might have with reusing this site or proposing this site again. And so I think I'll turn it over to Matt to discuss the other 2 sites.
All right, so site number 2 is the Deerville property. It's currently about 8 times larger than the current site, which can help incorporate all the needs and features to ensure the station meets the town needs for decades to come. I noticed that in some of the town hall meetings, that was a big talking point. That would include modern safety standards, which is like decontamination zones for cancer prevention protocols, and the apparatus bays that could be built there too. We understand that the school that occupies the site is permanently closed. Using this closed site would offer a blank canvas that could offer cost savings option to renovate the existing structure. And then there's minimal site restrictions to allow for a custom high efficiency layout. As far as the parcel on the west edge, there's a strip that goes out to High Street. We could use this as an access point that would, an access road that would go 2 ways. You'd also have access still to High Street, which is close to the original fire station. In the cons, the school, we understand that if we remove the school from the site, it takes away from the town's future redevelopment for schools when they're trying to improve district-wide infrastructure. And the town impacts on the fields, I know that was another big thing that they were worried about, and it ranked pretty well on the F1 site matrix. So.
And one of the things that jumped out at us pretty quickly, and it's something we'd look to understand more, is opportunity to maybe split the site. So that field in the north, there's a lot of space between those 2 fields, so you could slide that field to the south, maintain your 2 fields, and grab the northern quarter or third of that parcel, and you still have 2 to 3 times the space that you would have in the existing site to construct your new fire station. You have that 20-foot wide corridor that connects you directly to High Street, so you have your immediate response there. You can do a red, yellow flashing beacon at that location. So we do see some opportunities here, but ties into the bigger picture and what happens long-term with the schools, and we think we have an answer for that too. Jump into the next one.
All right, that takes us to the town-owned property that's near High Street / Harvard Street. I noticed that this was got the highest overall score on the F1 site matrix, making it the most viable location. Again, this is almost 10 times the size of the current site, which can ensure that the town meets its needs for decades with their new fire department. It can also provide an access on Gay Street, which offers potential response time improvements. The cons. There's quite a bit of wetlands on this site, which would reduce the total building area and have some site constraints. Just from an aerial view and driving by earlier today, there's quite a lot of residential abutters too, which causes some issues. The access options for Gay Street, as I mentioned, there's wetlands. We experienced that at the Easton Public Safety Project. It was just a high-level permitting needed from the Army Corps of Engineers. There's also another access option down below between the Westwood Children's School and the middle school fields. It would come off of High Street. This would require an Article 97 land swap, which would necessitate legislative approval and environmental compensation. Some of these long access roads might have an impact on emergency mobilization speed, so that's something else that we would have to, discuss.
So that area that you see with the black dots up on the screen there, that's the Article 97 space. So we understand you have an SOI going forward for a school eventually. That may be ideal real estate for a potential school location too, but you would have to do that Article 97 land swap. As part of the first project, the fire station project, if you were to take those fields, relocate them, give them a refresh, and make those Article 97, you might have an opportunity there for a land swap that opens up some more real estate for a future potential project.
All right, and this slide shows, it's called the Massachusetts, I call it Phase 1 Site Assessment Map. So it's a snapshot of environmental conditions and risk around the property. It's not proof of contamination, it's just a screening tool to ensure that you're doing full due diligence of all environmental conditions when developing. We understand the Deerfield site has protected open spaces in a wellhead protection area, Zone 2, and the town-owned property, it shows wetlands. It's in a wellhead protection area, Zone 2, and there is some protected open space. While these aren't deal breakers, they just require specialized engineering and additional site-level permitting. And previously, before I worked at PMA, I was an environmental consultant doing PFAS remediation on Air National Guard bases around New England. I know I think it's Langan is working on the current one with you guys, so
Right.
I'd hope that we could provide nuanced coordination and some extra consulting on that end. So
Great, thank you.
now I'll turn it over to Julia with our marketing team, who will talk about community outreach.
Thanks, guys. So hi, everyone. Reminder, my name is Julia. I am a marketing associate at PMA's New England office. Locally, we are a team of 3. We help support community outreach and engagement efforts for most of our OPM projects. Nationwide, PMA has about 12 marketing coordinators or associates, including 2 graphic designers. We call on them if needed to provide a remote support for outreach efforts, especially the graphic designers. They're great for these kinds of things. So as mentioned earlier, we know that this is probably going to be a big part of this project, making sure the community understands the project, supports it. Any fears, anxieties they have about it are kind of understood and communicated so that, we can get this project going successfully. So if we're going to take a few minutes and talk about what that looks like for PMA and kind of what we've done for other communities and how that's been successful. So this slide here, on the left, we kind of just have a list of potential key stakeholders. This is kind of based on our experience. We also tailored it to be specific to fire station projects, and we looked at kind of specific to your town and this project. So we understand the Fire Station 1 Steering Committee has already worked on some of these outreach efforts. We think that's great. Should we be selected, one of the first things we would do is meet with the steering committee, kind of understand your goals, what you've done so far, how we can help support those goals, what are the next steps. So some of the rest of those ones on there are pretty self-explanatory: building committee, residents, staff, neighborhoods, abutters, DPW, first responders. So those, it's not an exhaustive list. We're happy to add to that list, but this is generally who we try to target for outreach efforts. On the right, we kind of outline our role and approach. So we want to provide key expertise and staffing for these outreach efforts. We help attend and organize meetings. We're constantly emailing and phone communication where available, and we do help with the update presentations for the projects and notifications to the community. And our approach, really, we want to operate as an extension of your town staff. We want to integrate seamlessly with the team so we know when and who to contact and what to tell them. And we are available when needed, including evenings and weekends. We're very comfortable with that. We understand that a lot of these events will happen outside of working hours. There we go. This slide, you'll see a lot of photos of our teammates attending various events. Some of them are more formal, building meeting presentations, any other forums. Some of them are more informal, town events, seasonal events, those kinds of things. We love to go to these things, get to talk to people face to face, understand where they're coming from with this project. So that list shows some of the things we do. Project website is a big one, if needed. The graphics team that I mentioned earlier is a big support there. We can help run social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, anything like that. We help with video updates, so if you guys wanted to do a construction update, we can help with that. We help provide posters and flyers, which is huge, especially for the abutters during construction. We help, again, attend community events, planning meetings, and we meet with town officials, organizations, and groups. Okay, and this is a list, just kind of a sample list of some events we might attend, kind of based on things we've done in the past. So that first section, kind of again, general meetings and events, building committee meetings, user group meetings, open houses, visioning workshops, and then tours of comparable stations, which is a big part of fire station projects. And then we'll do the community and public meetings, forums for the feasibility study and design development, neighborhood and abutters meetings, and then select board and finance meetings. Various government first responders meetings. We might be with Eversource, Council on Aging, first responders, those kinds of things. And on the right, more social recreational events, games. We'll go to games, YMCA events, those kinds of things, or various farmers markets, festivals, those kinds of things. And then lastly, we did some research on what we might do in Westwood should we be selected. We know that Westwood Day is probably a big opportunity for that. We think that would be a great opportunity for outreach. It's an event, everyone's having fun, they're celebrating the town they live in and love. It's a good opportunity to get to know what people are excited about with this project, what they might not be that excited about with this project, kind of get a chance to talk to them face to face. I also think it builds trust with the project team. You know, they don't know us, but they might know us after this and get a sense that we have their back and we understand where they're coming from, what they're looking for with this project. We noticed there's also seasonal events and different fairs. And we saw that there's a magazine, which might be a great opportunity for us to kind of either write articles or get interviewed, Q&As, flyers, those kinds of things. Like I said, my background's in writing, so that could be a good opportunity to kind of get some information out there via a magazine or a newspaper or something like that. So I'm going to hand it over to Walter, who is going to speak a little more specifically to their efforts in Easton, which has been very successful. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Yep.
And I'll get through these slides. I know we're getting pretty close on time here. But I just wanted to highlight, PMA has done our research on the town of Westwood and specifically what's happened in 2025 and where the town lands. So we know that first vote that went through, about 18% turnout. Second vote turnout was actually higher, unfortunately, not in a better ending, but we've seen these issues before. So PMA's job is to help rebrand that message. The same problems still exist at your fire station. The same problems still exist for your firefighters. There's safety concerns throughout the town. So it's the same problem, but we need to help the town come up with a new message to help educate the townspeople. So the way that we would see that going is through flyers. You see that on the left. Outreach events and postcards to get people to these informational sessions. It's very difficult to get people the information they need. We're limited through OCPF. We know that we need to make sure that we're not giving them or going against those guidelines, but we need to make sure that information is available. We make sure that these handouts are available at your local fire stations, your town halls, your libraries. So we just need to make the information available and help you get it to the community. Regarding that website that Julia talked about, we think that this is going to be a great tool. We saw what the town has up on the existing town website, but we think that the PMA team and our web developers and our marketing team can really boost the informational presence online. The Easton website saw a lot of traffic through design and feasibility, and there was a lot of engagement on both the town website and on the Facebook page. We need to show these conditions to make sure people understand that this problem isn't going away by not voting. This fire station still exists no matter what happens. So we need to help rebrand that message. What we did in Easton, we toured those facilities. We showed them those problems. Leading up to a potential vote, we were posting daily on the Facebook page, letting people know about those problems, letting people know about the future concerns, letting people know about construction cost escalation, and that pushing your problems to the future, while it might help your wallet in the beginning, it doesn't always help your wallet in the end. And it's just something that needs to be laid out to the entire team, and it needs to be presented to the community in the right way so that people fully understand what they're voting on and the options that they have. I'll turn it back to Chad to kind of close us out here.
Yeah, so again, thank you for the opportunity. I mean, this is right in our wheelhouse. This is a situation that we've been in very recently down in Carver with successful results, and we hope that bringing a fresh perspective will help you get over this hurdle. But with that, I'll turn it back to the selection panel for any questions.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate it. So we have 5 prepared questions so that we're interviewing all the firms equitably. but the members are going to be free to ask follow-ups based on those questions or in response to your specific presentation. So I will kick us off. You addressed it a little bit referencing Carver, but this is obviously very relevant in Westwood. Talk to us about PMA's experience, if any, serving as OPM on a project that had previously failed, right? So you addressed it a bit, but I want you to expand. If you've done this, what work did you do to recalibrate that project to get it approved?
Yeah, I can start and then jump in.
Yep.
So in Carver, it's really a tailored approach to each community. There is no one size fits all. Things change, circumstances change, demographics change. In Carver, we dove into the vote results, and what we found in Carver is that the messaging specifically to manufactured home communities, they had a few of them large developments in Carver, was not accurate as far as tax impact projections go, and they were actually turning up to the polls and shooting this project down. So when we came on board, first we flipped it completely. It was an ad reno. The decision for an ad reno the first time was there was some nostalgia about the existing building or perceived nostalgia across the community. We met with different communities, constituents, different groups, had outreach, just gathering information, just like Wareham in that poll when we had the divide there. We found that there really was no attachment to that existing building. They were open to new construction. So once we saw they were open to new construction, we were able to put together a project that had half the construction duration, so it costs less money than the ad reno they had looked at 5 years before, and got them a brand new building without impacting staff and students while we were doing that work. In Carver's case, the revote, we got it the first time, and it was a 3-to-1 successful yes vote. So I think it yielded results there. Walter, anything to add there?
No, I think you hit on most of the Carver outreach efforts, but really being in that community, and Chad mentioned, it's not a one-size-fits-all. The PMA team needs to integrate into the town that we're working in and find where something perhaps was, a stone wasn't turned over, and find that missing link that needs to be uncovered and brought out to the community.
Thank you. Quick follow-up on that before I turn over to Molly. When you came in as a new OPM on that project, did the community maintain the same design team, or did you end up bringing in a new design firm as well?
We did end up bringing in a new design team,
Okay.
although there was concerns from the educational perspective that they wanted to maybe stay with the team that had previously been on the project. So yeah, it was a new design team.
And how did you address those concerns, right? Because if you are a firm that's awarded this, you will be coming in, you're gonna have a learning curve. We will, if successful on May 4th, get an appropriation in place, and then very, very quickly, you've worked with me before, you know what my expectations are. I need to do a competitive design process, and that could yield the same designer or it may not. But how there's benefits to being a new set of eyes, but there's drawbacks to starting fresh, so to speak. How did you square that in Carver?
So we focused on the amount of material that we could reuse
Yes.
in the second study. So there's a lot of that information from the first study. You own it, it's your intellectual property. So we roll that forward. And in Carver's case, a typical feasibility schematic through the MSBA is around 22, 24 months. We did it in 11 months as we were able to grab that material. Even though it was a brand new build in a completely different scenario, we did it in less than half the time because we built upon the work that was already done. So that would be an option. Another thing that I think swayed them to go with a different firm is there's a tendency, human tendency, I think when you've already reached a conclusion, as you're going forward, you're probably gonna find yourself backing into that same conclusion and maybe not as open, whereas if you're coming completely clean slate, I mean, I think you're looking at probably a bigger picture than otherwise if you're trying to reevaluate where things went wrong a year or 2 years ago.
Great, thank you. Molly?
What role do you view the OPM as having when it comes to meeting a project owner and voter desire for the most cost-effective project possible, balanced against the programmatic needs or design needs of a modern facility?
All right. Well,
Happy to repeat it if you
yeah, one more time. Sorry, I want to make sure I get all of it. Yep.
What role do you view as the OPM having when it comes to meeting a project owner and voter desire to have the most cost-effective project possible, balanced against the programmatic or design needs of a modern facility?
Absolutely. So I think the question is actually how PMA operates in that design phase. We don't have a desire to push something on an owner that they don't want, and we don't have a desire to overbuild for a community. We know that the support of the community is what gets the project passed, and we know that the support of the owner, specifically, you know, this is a fire station, so it would be the fire chief and the assistant fire chief, or deputy fire chief, excuse me. You know, they have needs for that department. They know where those needs are going, so we're gonna need to have, bi-weekly meetings with the stakeholders group that are going to be partaking in or be living in those buildings. We need to know what's in their industry, what's coming 20 years in their industry. We need to have their vision for the future of Westwood Fire Department, and we need to make sure that the designer integrates that into those plans.
Oh, just a quick follow-up on that. Do you have anybody at PMA who is sort of like, fire expert feels like a silly word, but do you use any sort of consultants from the fire fields, to your point?
We don't typically hire them under the OPM, but typically under the designer, there would be a fire expert. Yep.
And just, if I can jump in, just for keeping on budget, you know, we make sure that the architect has a design to budget written into their contract, and then we make sure that in any VE or VM efforts, while we finalize the budget, we make sure we don't make any cuts that would impact the, you know, the fire department's operational needs when we go through those VE
And
efforts.
for the benefit of folks watching this later, VE and VM is value engineering and value management.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the acronyms going today.
Yeah.
So we document right out of the gate what the must-haves are, the non-negotiables. I mean, that's your core program, your vision, your necessary items for the building. Everything else we'll pick away at, and I mean, we do strive to be the lowest cost per square foot that is going on in the area at any given time, and we've had success doing that. But we know that those core needs are untouchable, so we'll find ways to bring costs down, creative ways, without impacting those core needs. I know during the pre-bid we heard Mechanics Bay is a must. You use it. We saw it during the tour. So I mean, that's one of your core needs. We would not look at cutting something like that. That's a core programmatic need. But lots of other places of focus.
Can you tell us about a project you worked on that did not move forward or was not successful? Tell us what happened, and then looking back, what you would have done differently.
Yep. So we had one actually very recently, not too far away, in West Bridgewater. In West Bridgewater, what had happened is a decision was made early on in that project to head down a road, and I think the design team was unable to hit the reset and look back and say maybe that wasn't the right call, because now we have new information, we have better information, we have more information. So we, as PMA, recommended, hey, sorry, you're going to lose time. We need to redo preferred schematic. We need to relook at this solution and situation. But I think that they had already gone so far down that they had tunnel vision on, and they were trying to find a means to an end with that predetermined outcome. So in that case, and unfortunately, in West Bridgewater, it went to the vote. They had a split committee, as half the committee wanted to go back and do a relook, and the other half said, nope, we're too far into this. So in that case, that project didn't pass. Is when you split your committee, you split your community. Very tough to get through a debt exclusion if you have a split committee and you don't have all parties on the same page.
Thank you.
So based on what you know about this project, could you tell us what concerns you most? And could you also provide an example of how you've adjusted a project based on community feedback in the past?
What most concerns me would be just high level looking at it would be the higher voter turnout and more no votes on the second vote, and trying for the PMA team, really the goal right there would be find out what perhaps changed in between those two messaging efforts. It's obviously good to drive new voters out and get them to the polls, but to find out where the influx of no votes came from, and to find out what the concerns are of the community that caused that. That would be, in my mind, one of the things I'd want to look at initially and first. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, just if you could provide an example of how you've adjusted a project in the past based on community feedback.
Based on community feedback. So in Easton, for the fire stations, the community feedback was that the police and fire relocating out of the school complex, so they're right next door to the schools, right across the street. The perceived notion is that the police station is staffed 100% of the time, when in fact, police are out on patrols. So we had to educate the community to know that the better situation is for fire to be on a main road, to have that direct access point. So it's an education process, I think, for PMA to make sure the community understands that while the idea that what we have is what we need to educate them better and educate them to know that the better response times are going to come from them coming in off that main road into the neighborhoods as opposed to, and we saw it during construction, the fire trucks trying to get out. It was not great to see. So we're happy that that problem's going to be solved.
The poll that you saw on one of the slides earlier too is probably another example of that. So we had the select board in Wareham saying, nope, it needs to be a central campus. You cannot split the school populations. You're going to have an east-west Wareham divide. So they were adamant. They said that's the right choice. We don't support anything else. School committee was split. The building committee was a little bit split. So we knew in that case you can't have split committees. You can't. We needed to get everyone on the same page. So we did go out with that poll. Over 6,000 people hit it. And we got that feedback, and it was overwhelming. So the answer was right there. Brought that information back to the select board, back to the school committee, back to the building committee, and we actually got them on board unanimous with that preferred solution. So that, I think, step one is always understanding if there is a divide, what the opposing view is on that divide. It might be as simple as if you did Deerfield, we thought we were going to lose the fields, but that's 8 acres. You can take 2 acres, have double the space, and keep your fields, and maybe even add a third field. So, I mean, if something like that is easy enough to understand and get the correct message out there, that's where we would start right out of the gate.
Jody?
I have a follow-up question to that before I ask my designated question. I mean, obviously, that's a big issue that we have here. Vote failed twice. You talked about, and I think it's important, getting to figure out why that was. What was the issue? Can you talk a little bit about how you would get that information? How would you go about figuring that out?
I think the first thing is going to be those community forums and personally getting a Facebook page and some Facebook polls going up, maybe even on the website. It doesn't need to be Facebook. It could be any type of social media, but getting community engagement. We've found that to be incredibly helpful. Going back to, I think Wareham was 2017, 2018, Carver, not as much on Facebook, but community events and community forums. I think we've had over 150 people at some of the community forums. This is pre-COVID, so it's kind of changed. It's become a little bit more online and but hosting community forums virtually has seemed to work. But doing our due diligence to get the information is basically that outreach effort and digging into the community, going to those events, putting ourselves out there for people to talk to, and really talking to you guys and talking to the representatives and leaders in the town and getting their feel on where we could go. You know, you guys know best of where to get the information. We'll go get it. We'll help you go get it.
I think also making it easy for the community. I mean, QR codes, simple, but they're great. You can put it at town hall, the library, each of the schools, and just say scan here and give us your feedback. The options that we're looking at, here are the pros, cons. We can't, OCPF, Walter mentioned earlier, so the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, we can't force information out to the community, but we can tell people where to find the information. And sometimes that where to find the information is as simple as clicking a QR code. We can hit 50,000 people in a matter of 48 hours through a simple QR code if we're able to push that out via social media.
Tracking online is great as well. We can see what's working on our end and where the engagement is happening on Facebook and on the website. So we can see if something we're doing on there isn't working, we can see if something is getting engagement.
You see your demographic, you can see, I mean, everything. So when someone clicks on that, it gives a lot of information about who's giving you that feedback and which way a certain demographic might shift, and that helps you, like in that Carver situation. Okay, maybe it's the senior population that is really against this. Let's find out why the senior population. Now we shift and we're going to council on aging and spending less time at community forums in elementary schools. So it's no one size fits all. I wish there was, but it's definitely specific to each project in each community.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about how you would approach working with here in Westwood we have a steering committee made up of volunteers that have greatly different levels of experience with capital projects like this. How would you approach working with that committee, making sure that the committee has the knowledge base that they need to ask the right questions and make the right recommendations?
Yeah, so I was actually looking at this earlier. I saw you guys, I think it's meeting bi-weekly right now. I think that's unbelievable. Not a lot of towns have that effort going in the town, so kudos to you guys for just having that in general. But engaging with them, I think we do like to hold, I think we'd want to be part of those, we likely would be if we were selected, part of those bi-weekly meetings, but giving them updates on a bi-weekly basis of what's happened, what's changed, what's new, and getting their feedback. You know, we don't live in the town, but these people do live in the town. Getting the feedback from them on that bi-weekly basis. What's new in the town? What's the concern this week? As Chad mentioned, it is project specific, but that type of group is, you know, their value is immeasurable to our success and the project's success, so.
I love that you already have it set up. Usually that's one of our first things. We need to set up a community outreach group that, I mean, has kind of feelers out in the community and understands what the community sentiment is. The fact that you have that is a huge plus right out of the gate.
And then just additionally, when we do schedules, budgets, anything like that, we can change the formatting, change the layout, change the amount of information that's shown, so we can have our budget sheet just be a simple summary with 3 or 4 lines, just so that anyone can just grab it and just reference it, or we could get down into the details with every single cost code and everything that's appropriated for it. So we can get as detailed or as high level as anyone who wants for any meeting. We're flexible like that.
So that was the extent of our prepared questions. We have a few minutes left. Does anyone on the panel have any follow-ups or curiosities for PMA while they are here?
One quick thing I had, actually, I was just curious if you could speak to a little bit about your availability to us as, like, the station committee meets, or we have some of these meetings or deadlines as we go along. How often are you close by? How do you approach that? How do you guys?
So our office is right up the street in Braintree, at Braintree Hill Park by the Social Plaza. So we're nearby, but we're not actually in our office a lot. We work out of our job sites. So when you have active construction, that's our new home office. So we don't put one clerk on and have the clerk just manage it in a vacuum. The PMs are actually on the construction sites with the clerk, and that way we're able to proactively identify issues. Meeting coverage, we understand there's a lot of them, not unusual from where we stand. So our approach to that is to staff with redundancy. So you're gonna have a pretty large team for the project, but that's just our model. So I mean, you can either have one person dedicate 100% of their time, or you can have 5 people at 25% of their time. You're going to be better off with the 5 people at 25%, as you have more eyes watching, you have more availability, a smaller team, and people take vacations, people have maternity, paternity, things happen, life happens.
Yep.
So our model is definitely redundancy. So the team that you see will stay involved from day one through closeout, and they're all going to be up to speed, and everyone's going to know what's going on. The first thing we do on any project is we set up a team distribution group, so you don't have to find 5, 6 email addresses and send it to us. You send one email and it goes to the entire team, and someone responds immediately.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate, the bi-weekly thing, we're used to seeing it, we're used to doing that, we're used to handling that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
We do have a clerk, so we didn't bring him here with us. He's actually over on the Easton site today, but that project wraps up shortly. So by the time you hit construction, but he's never there alone. He's there, even though we're here, he's got 4 other people from PMA in the trailer with him today,
Yep.
so.
Yeah,
That's just our model. It's definitely different from the standard OPM model, but it works for us.
Yeah, to address, again, my direct experience, PMA served as an OPM in Easton for both a elementary school consolidation project and a police fire public works replacement project, and this is accurate. They get a trailer and they basically live there.
Yeah, okay.
So you've had an office in Easton since 2017, functionally. Yeah.
What do you think the primary responsibility or most important aspects of the job of an OPM are in the design feasibility phase as opposed to the construction phase?
That's a good question.
Support the owner, so is number one goal, but really diving into that is PMA handles the problems to make the owner the spotlight of the community. We are not the drivers of the project. You guys, this is your project, it's your town. We are here to fully support you through any effort that we can to make sure that you're successful. But, we handle the problems. We make sure that the right answer is available for you. We make sure that we're on budget, on schedule, and basically just handle anything that the town needs us to handle. We really don't have an issue taking problems from you guys. We want to handle them for you. Make this project as simple as it can be for you. So.
We don't really want to make it, here's a problem, what do you guys think? Figure it out. We want to come with a solution or a recommendation and a couple of different options to help you guys make an informed decision.
Yep.
we drive the process too, and I think that's probably a place that we're a little bit unique. So during design feasibility, we're at the meetings, but we're also running the meetings, organizing the meetings. When you get into construction, you'll see a lot of times projects will turn over running the meetings and meeting minutes to the contractors or construction manager. We don't do that. We run them right through closeout. So we take charge from day one. We're always the first line of defense, and we try to keep everything, make your jobs easier as our job. So we want to keep things from going all the way up to the owner if we can prevent it. There are sometimes when just circumstances are going to necessitate, but we try to limit that as much as we possibly can.
Right, and we want to be active as the managing the architect during design to make sure they're not getting away, making sure they're following the direction from the committees and driving it, making sure the communication flows from the architect to us, to the town.
Thank you.
I had 3 things that I've been writing down, if you don't mind me just contributing. So when we talked about like community outreach and stuff, we're building a school up in Somerville, and we did something called a walk and talk on the weekend. So pretty much we walked around the current school, and a bunch of people from the community came out and gave their advice or needs or wants on the school. So we felt that it was very proactive and productive, because you're actually including them. If we walked around to like 3 sites, we're actually including them, not just looking at the sites on the screen and stuff like that. So that's helpful. You mentioned that the steer community is some people who don't really know a lot about this OPM stuff. So I came from environmental backgrounds 2 years ago to this company, and Chad, Walter, Seamus, some other people that I've worked with, I didn't really have a full background in the OPM, but they caught me right up to speed within these 2 years. So they really do a good job, like simplifying everything and explaining exactly what we're all about and what we need to do. Then the final thing was the time and being available and stuff like that. I'm working on a project in Boston 7 days a week right now, and we're happy to be available all these days for this.
I don't think Boston's watching. Blink if you need help. Well,
I'm just saying that we're happy to help.
We appreciate that. So we're at time, and again, thank you to the PMA team for your proposal and for coming in. And we will be in touch, Michelle, I think next week.
Early next week, yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you.
Enjoy the
Thank you for
sunshine.
having us.
Thank you for coming in. Just quickly to introduce the panel here. My name is Connor Reed. I'm the town administrator. Have the folks on my right introduce themselves and title, and we'll go to the left and then turn it over to you. Thank you.
Molly Fitzpatrick, Deputy Town Administrator.
Nora Loughnane, Director of Community and Economic Development.
Michelle Miller, Procurement.
Jody Petroselli, FS1 Steering Committee.
I'm Colin McCarthy, Assistant Fire Chief.
Great. Thank you.
My name is Neil Joyce. I'm a principal at Construction Monitoring Services.
Scott Lupker with Construction Monitoring Services as well, Principal and Project Manager.
Luca Capone, also with Construction Monitoring Services. I'll be the on-site representative during construction.
Thank you.
We are very pleased to be here today to represent our firm and discuss our qualifications further for the Westwood Fire Station project, and we're very thankful for the opportunity. Construction Monitoring Services has been in business for a little over 25 years. We're centrally located in Marlborough, Massachusetts. Recently opened up an office in Waltham as well. We offer project management services to municipalities across the Commonwealth. We've completed more than 100 projects over the last 25 years, and provide all of our services with in-house personnel. We do all of our own cost estimating. We do all of our own clerk of the works service. Everybody is an employee, and we are a full-service shop, do everything in-house, and can offer you all services necessary to complete this project. We have an extensive experience in fire station projects with our management team. Have current projects in North Andover, Hamden, also Carlisle, which we left off the list unintentionally, and recently completed projects in Greenfield, Sudbury, Lexington, Dudley, and Hyannis that we'll talk a little bit more about during our presentation. As I had said, we have an office in Waltham. We are mostly Eastern Mass and Central Mass located, so we are no more than 25 minutes travel time to the site. So we think we're pretty unique in that manner as well, very proximate to the town and certainly able to respond quickly to any of the town's needs. One of the things that we try to do as we approach any project is to understand what makes the project unique. We know that Westwood is a community that is unique unto itself. Although elements of every project are similar, we certainly represent and understand that there are things that will make this project unique, and we intend to investigate those fully. Fire stations have evolved over time, as we know. They serve a wide user group of people within the station, both from mechanics to firefighters and EMTs and emergency staff, as well as administration and the general public. We try to work very collaboratively with our designers to focus on the functionality of the station, understanding your operations, how you man and staff and respond is of course of paramount importance and should be considered highly when managing the station design process. And we also want to create a space that's welcoming and connected to the community, reflected in both the aesthetics of the project as well as a welcoming environment inside of the station to handle the public interface that goes forward. We know that you are in the process of putting together some temporary accommodations, and we'll talk a little bit more about our experience with temporary fire stations as we move forward through the proposal. We understand that personnel are becoming more and more diverse, both culturally and multi-gender as well. So we want to make sure the stations are accommodating to both male and female, as well as other cultural responses that we need to provide within the station. Again, building with functionality, understanding the intended purpose of each space, but also building in flexibility as that functionality and function changes over time. We want to make sure that we're providing you with the most flexible space that we can while meeting the department's needs. Technology, we've always responded well in terms of providing you with services that make the station technologically functional as well. 5 years ago, nobody thought of video conferencing. Now, there's no way to do business without it. So we want to make sure that just, really get into those finite details and bring forward everything that we can. And again, creating that welcoming and public interface for the community. We understand, I said it before, I'll say it again, we understand that there is no cookie cutter solution for this project. It will be unique, there will be challenges that need to be overcome, whether they be budget, environmental, site-related, whatever it is. As our team, we're here today and committed to finding the right solution for the town and implementing it as we move forward through the project. A little bit about our management approach, and then I'll turn the floor over to Luke to continue. We draw on all of our past experiences, all 100+ projects that we've served, and take the lessons learned from every project. As I said, everyone is unique. Every project has things that you learn and develop as you go on, and we take all of those lessons learned from our past experiences and put them to work for you. We work very collaboratively with both the designer and the town and the department to develop a shared vision for what your successful project is going to look like and operate. And then we work with the architect to clearly communicate those expectations both to the contractor as well as to the community and building community support for the project. And then partner with both the architect, the town, and the contractor to make sure that the project is efficiently executed. And efficiency and time and money is paramount for all parties involved. With that, I will turn it over to Luke.
Thanks, Neil. As Neil mentioned, every project comes with a unique set of challenges. At the top of the list for this one is resetting the public's sentiment on this building and the need for the building in town. In our opinion, it'd be very tough to find someone in the architecture, engineering, construction industry that would say that this building is in good shape. And for that reason alone, I think the need for this project is very real. The firefighters certainly deserve a safe place to train, respond, and live. And then the community also needs this building. Although people don't realize it and they may not see it firsthand every day, the public relies on this building every day. As we continue to work through the project options, we'll work with the steering committee to hopefully change that perception in town and get this project across the finish line. On the screen here is an anticipated project schedule using the traditional design bid build method under Chapter 149. Upon selection, CMS would begin the designer procurement process immediately with the goal of having a design team on board and working by June 1st. That would give us 6 months of time to head into town meeting with a substantial design and some data behind the cost associated with that design. And our responsibility, CMS's responsibility along the way, is to maintain these milestones and keep the town informed of the decisions that are being made well in advance before we need to make those decisions, so that everybody has the relative information in front of them to make the best informed decision for the town and the department. As we head into the feasibility study, we'll be beginning the site evaluations of the two town-owned parcels, along with schematic design of the existing site on High Street. A critical part of this effort is to engage all of the users of the building, that being fire, EMS staff, the mechanics, any administrative staff, and also the public. The public definitely is going to be involved in this building once it's opened. And our focus is understanding and finding that balance between a secure and safe building for the department, but also a place that is welcoming for the public and provides the opportunity to conduct that business in a good environment. And then as we head into the temporary fire station conversation, this is something I think that we need to start day one. As we can see down the street, I've started to build a temporary facility, and just understanding, more about that facility, the needs, the wants, and the desires of the department, how we can support them through this construction process. It's important to understand a temporary facility is not a new building and is not a permanent structure. And it's important to separate the needs of a temporary facility versus a permanent as we head through here. And, we're just trying to be cost conscious, and every dollar that we spend on temporary is a dollar that we're not spending on the permanent station, and trying to avoid those sunken costs is going to be critical as we head forward here.
I'd like to highlight some of our past experience. The first project is Greenfield Fire Station. We did a temporary station here for them. You can see that we had 2 fabric strung structures here. They also rented some space from the adjacent building for some of the admin space, and they also leased the 2 trailers for firefighter overnight quarters, as well as office space in there. Let's see. In Lexington, this is a building that the town bought to use for swing space for projects that they had in the works, one of which was the fire station. We went in here and retrofitted the first floor to put in firefighter sleeping quarters, retrofitted the rooms to accommodate the offices. The fabric strung structure in the rear was 3 bays, one of which was drive-through, was fully heated. There was spaces for storage of turnout gear, SCBA equipment, et cetera, within that, and they put a connector wing in between the 2 buildings for safe passage in winter. This is the new fire station in Greenfield. Just some things to note, this was a Chapter 149 traditional design bid build project. This was 5 bays, very tight site, worth noting, 1.5 acres, and this was also an all-electric building, so we were able to meet their sustainability goals within the city. Similarly, in Lexington, very efficient building. This building was LEED Gold, not certified. The town didn't want to go for the certification, but it was. We did follow the LEED Gold path. This was a traditional design bid build project. It was net zero ready with solar array, which was planned for future. This site was very challenging. It was a very tight site, a lot of traffic, a lot of, the soil was very poor condition, both bearing and environmental concerns, so we had to clean the site and stabilize the soil with rammed aggregate piers. This was done during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we brought this on, on time and on budget. Going back a little bit, Hyannis Fire was a new construction, but it was done on an occupied site. All three of these options or similar experience was on occupied sites, which just to show our experience with that. The bottom right is Dudley. This was there was a pre-engineered building built off to the right, and then off to the left was a traditional framed building for admin, and in the rear, sleeping quarters. And then bottom left is Sudbury Fire Station 3. This was in a like 5,000 square foot addition, administrative space off of their substation. We understand that sustainability is important to the community. It's important to us and, most communities around us that we work in. These are examples of various levels of LEED achievements. Some of the projects were certified, some were not. And we also happy to highlight a net zero school that was the first in the state that we completed in Lexington, bottom right. Just to follow up on lessons learned that Neil brought up earlier. We do lean heavily on the lessons that we've learned and the experience that we've had over the past 30 years. Neil and I have been working on public safety projects for the last 10 plus years. We've done 20 public safety projects in that period of time. And we really look at the golden triangle, if you want to call it that, for project management, and trying to balance that as best as possible. Obviously, time is money, so some of the things you see here, putting our experience to work, are ways that we accelerate time, and it really comes down to proper planning. So we like to try to do early procurement for long lead items. We like to encourage potentially owner-furnished, contractor-installed items, which can save some money on markups. It's very important for pre-construction investigation, so we lean heavily on that, whether it's site or an existing building, if that was the case. Additionally, we encourage and make sure that we're involved in the permitting process and getting in front of local boards and committees early to get that started and see that through. Make sure we have approval from everyone going forward. Also, we're very strong on our document review process, we bring in our clerks, our on-site guys early to look at the plans and do plan reviews and make sure that those documents are very strong, including the contract, the plans and specs. Also, we want to make sure that we're in front of, we have approvals for electric and public utilities, and make sure there's a plan in place for communications, which is very important for fire stations and any municipal building. So why CMS? Well, like I said, Neil and I have been working together for a long time. He started with us and he's back with us, and we're really happy to have him back. We've done a lot of fire station projects. We take a real collaborative approach to our management, and we're very service-oriented and solutions-focused. We don't want to bring problems to the table. We solve those problems before they become an issue. And also, we're just very excited to be here and excited about this project, and we'd love to work with the town. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So for the sake of equity, we have a set of prepared questions that we're asking all of the OPMs on a short list. The committee members may have some specific follow-ups based on your answers or based on your presentation. And you may have addressed some of these, but again, we're going to ask the same questions of everyone. So first, can you talk to us about what experience, if any, does CMS have serving as OPM on a project that had previously failed to receive voter approval? And if you have done this, were you able to either come in or restart a project as OPM for a project that failed and get it approved, and how?
So, one of the ironically, one of the fire station projects that we did was down in Hyannis.
Okay.
The Hyannis project, it was a fire district, so it required an independent vote.
Yep.
In order to move forward. I think 4 times it failed.
Sorry, I
Not
don't mean
that
to laugh.
bad.
That's-
Not that bad.
Oh.
While we were supporting the district, I suppose it would be. Ultimately, the issue, it took a long time to get there, but once we got there, it came to light that there was a concern on the town's part that they were stockpiling land and resources to the fire district that was not necessarily made public. So the concern is that they had more aspirations for more substations and whatnot down the road. So ultimately, we were able to sort of uncover that through many, many months of discussions and negotiations with the various user groups. Ultimately, the district sold off some of the property and took the proceeds from those sales and deferred the cost of the project.
Okay.
And then I would say that the project was also value engineered. We looked very critically at the program, cut some square footage out of the building, ultimately presented a project that was both economically beneficial as well as addressed the concerns of the public.
Great, thank you.
A follow-up on that one is just how long if it failed 4 times, like, what was the time period and like, in what years were we talking about?
The project was built, I think, from 2017 to 2019, and we started in design with them conceptually, I think, in 2014. So it was over a 2 or 3 year period that hit it. Like I said, they had incurred multiple roadblocks.
Thank you.
What role do you view the OPM as having when it comes to meeting a project owner and voter desire to have the most cost-effective project possible, balanced against the programmatic or design needs of a modern fire facility?
So, one of the things that we found through our experience is that the number one cost driver for any project is square footage. So we go back and look very carefully, very pragmatically at the square footage that's required as part of the building program. It's often a trade-off, with all due respect to the department, needs versus wants. And that process, as painful as it can be, is likely gonna net you the most cost-effective footprint and square footage that hopefully will bring the project back to an acceptable budget. The one thing I will add with all of that, as I'm sure you're aware, is you're also fighting the element of time. Costs are going up. They go up year over year. Some years are better than others. But we're very optimistic right now. We're in a very competitive bidding market. We've seen a lot of people with, a lot of contractors with the global unrest and whatnot are grabbing as much work as they possibly can. We've pre-qualified 2 projects this year and had over between 100 and 150 inquiries and that's just the sub-trades and the general. So a tremendous interest in public projects right now. We're seeing a lot of private firms that are migrating back in because the private market is slowing down. So as the hard part is it's tough to predict, and we're still seemingly several months away. Best case scenario of having something that we could put on the street. But, you know, it's a very favorable market right now. Conditions are much better than they have been.
And just for the benefit of any residents who watch this after, pre-qual, you're talking about pre-qualification, right, of trades on a project and.
Any project over $10 million in value in the
Right.
Commonwealth, you have to go through a pre-qualification process for both the general contractors and the subcontractors.
Right. And when you have that much competition, that shows that there's a lot of people in the market who want to get assigned to a job like this, because when there's global or broader economic unrest, you have a 1 or 2 year construction job with a municipality, you at least know that you have a good project to put a team on.
Correct.
Thanks.
Can you tell us about a project that you worked on that did not move forward or was not successful? Tell us what happened, and then looking back, what you would have done differently.
So we have had truly have been blessed with the percentage of projects of ours that actually go forward. We're greater than 95% in projects moving forward over the last 15 years or so. We have had a handful of projects that have failed. Usually it's because of either a local vote or lack of funding is usually a big factor. We did have one project that didn't move forward simply because the community felt that the space that was going to be utilized for that particular project was better served in its recreational setting rather than for use in commercial space. That was a library project out in the middle part of the state. And ultimately, the project was not resurrected and did not move forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've never had a public safety project move forward.
So specific to what you know about this project, what concerns you the most about it? And could you give an example of how you've adjusted on a project based on what you've heard in community feedback?
Sure. So I think to touch on an earlier point, I think one of our biggest concerns on this project is the number that you have out there, right? So I believe it was a $38 million project that you brought forward previously. It was a 30,000 plus square foot facility that you brought out. You know, numbers these days conservatively, $800 to $1,000 a foot for a building is not uncommon. So my biggest concern is that the number probably won't change significantly. There may be some trade-off if an alternative site is used and we were able to eliminate the cost associated with the temporary facilities. But I think budget is gonna be your biggest, you know, again, as compared to 2024, when we were here before, I think market conditions are better. I think people were still reeling from the pandemic and the impacts to the market and the uncertainty at that point in time. But now we're out, you know, 2+ years since then, so we're seeing the normal price escalation that we would always see. Can you, I'm sorry, could you
Part
just
two,
follow
absolutely.
up on part two? I'm
Absolutely.
sorry.
We were just curious if you could give or provide an example of how you've adjusted a project based on what you've received in community feedback previously.
So normally, we will take the opportunity to sit down with any community in which we're working. We will ask them to set up community forums. We will listen to what they have to say. Oftentimes, again, coming to understand and addressing a community's concerns are important. You know, there's an ounce of truth in everything that comes out. To use the old Stephen Covey example, separate the emotion from the actual issue is sometimes 70 to 80% of the concern. But once you get the problems identified, you can adjust the station's design aesthetically. Maybe it's not the best fit for the community, so aesthetically we can make some changes to the outside of the building while not affecting the functionality. If it's cost-driven, we can look at opportunities for square footage. We could potentially build some space in as a bid alternate and take advantage of that if the market supports it. We've used a lot of different ways of responding to concerns. I'm trying to think of,
Well, as concerns are raised with those, smaller groups, community meetings, I know you've had some of those, the steering committee's had some of those. The last one, I think I saw had 10 people came or something. And that's great, because then you can bring that feedback and you can add that to the FAQs and things like that and get that information out there, which is the most important thing, because everyone needs to know what's going on and getting, you've already have a lot of information that's there, but just keeping it relevant and adding to it as you get feedback from the community is very important. And we provide a lot of that content, like with some of the marketing we do in-house and have done for, recent projects. We just had some DPW projects that we assisted with the marketing for that, and those both went through, so.
Thank you.
Can you describe a little bit how you would approach in a situation like this where Westwood has a steering committee made up of various community members that have very different levels of experience on capital projects like this? How would you approach working with them, making sure that the committee had the knowledge and education and fact base that they needed so that we were asking the right questions and could make proper recommendations?
so I think 90% of building a committee's support is having the ability to listen, understand the questions, understand the concerns, address them through our experience. Like I said, we've worked with literally hundreds of building committees over the course of our time together. I'd like to think that we're responsive, we're certainly educated, we understand the public construction process. Oftentimes, a lot of what we're doing is educating people as to what the public process is and how it's different from the private side. I can tell you countless times we've sat down and explained, I don't understand why it costs so much money to do things publicly. And we spend an inordinate amount of time and effort to educate the public as well as our committees as to how public construction is different from the private side. We've done both. And I think that's the best, it's the best I can offer. Anybody, anything from the team?
Can you talk a little bit about 2026 we're in now? How do you go about doing that education? How do you reach the public? How do you market them? As you said, we had a community meeting and we had 10 people show up. That's not gonna do it. So what type of team and program would you put together on this project to get the message out and get the information from the community that we need?
So in the past, we've done everything from, brick and mortar meetings, right? Welcome community groups, take advantage of senior centers and other areas where people come and gather, and we'll do an informal coffee event there and just come in and talk about the project, raise awareness. It can be as simple as putting, boards in the public library and in the police station lobby and in, the fire station lobby and anywhere where the public would come in and out to raise awareness that the project is going on, it's being resurrected and it's moving forward. Once we, sort of get into that process, one of the things that we did we've done it in Whitman, we've done it in Dedham, has been to establish a web page for the project, and then on the web page list frequently asked questions. Every time we get a question from the public, we put the question and the response to that question on the web page so that people can see a lot of times people are asking the same questions and they get misinformed through various groups in town, which is also a good way to set the record straight, get it all out there in the public, make sure that it's published, make sure it's publicly accessible.
Done the touch a truck, we've done
Yep.
had a local broadcasting company come and interview ourselves along with the facility managers, recent case was a DPW, so we met with the DPW director, but we've done it with police, fire stations. But, you know, inviting the community to like actually walk through the building, you know, you can kind of, you know, if you'd like to touch a truck, you can get some kids there and stuff, get some parents, and have a chance to see some of the issues. Obviously, you gotta be cognizant of safety and active stations and stuff. It can become difficult, but, you know, video tours are helpful, getting those up on Facebook and, you know, or the website, the town's website works well, we found.
Great, thank you.
So that's the conclusion of our prepared questions. Does anyone on the panel have any follow-ups that they'd like to ask while we have CMS here? Do you have any other, I guess, curiosities or things that you'd like?
Decision timeline?
Sure.
As always, right?
Yes, we are looking to schedule a subsequent meeting for a vote of this committee early next week. So,
Excellent.
great.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
We
Nice to
appreciate
meet
it.
everyone. Very excited about the project, and we love your vote of support, so
Right.
thank you in
Thank you.
advance.
Thank you.
Thank you.